Hello, my name is Raymond Goslitsky. I'm co-founder and CEO of League of Linguists, and today I'd like to talk to you about a rather important and yet unassuming word, off, and how 3 little letters can cause so much trouble. Let's start off by looking at off in its context. So off is of course a preposition, and we use it in ways to do with a position or a direction, but there are times where we do put it with other verbs and it gives off a different kind of flavour. For example, what's the difference between he's off and it's off? Think about it. We'll start off with he's off and see what we get with that, shall we? So here's a phone call. Hi, can I speak to Max? Sorry, he's off until the end of the week. What possibly could that mean? Well, as we all know, that means that he's not in the office. He's out. AWOL, on holiday, or maybe sick, who knows. But he's not there. How about this one? Pete's switched off his computer, so I guess he's off now. Well, in this case, we're talking about the fact that he is about to depart. So they're kind of connected in two rather bizarre ways. The first one meaning that he's not on, let's say, the work rota for that week. And the second one meaning that he's now about to go. But they do have a certain similarity if you think about it. The fact is they're not working, or they're away or about to go away. Right, let's move on. It's off. This is one you might have heard if you've been in a restaurant. Or if you buy a lot of dairy stuff. Don't drink the milk in the fridge. I think it's off. Here's the one with the restaurant. Hi, could I have the Eggs Benedict, please? Sorry, it should be a capital B. Sorry, it's off today, but it'll be back again tomorrow. It'll be on the menu again. It's off today. That means it's not on the menu. It's off the menu. Where does it come from? Do you think off as in don't drink the milk in the fridge? I think it's off. It's a question for another day, I think. So let's go into a little bit more detail, shall we? Because I think we can see how off translates into our everyday speech. So let's take pull off, shall we? Simple one. Would you like to pull off a piece of my cake? So we don't have any forks or knives or anything, so here's a piece of my cake. Just pull off a piece of my cake with your bare hands. Pull it off. We can use this with other things, of course, which separate. How about this one? It was such an amazing trick, nobody thought he would pull off such a feat. In this case, what does pull off mean? Well, it means really that someone was successful in doing something which seemed to be impossible at the time. To pull something off is something we use quite often to signify, wow, he was surprisingly successful. The fact of the matter is, in order to explain these things, you have to think of phrasal verbs in terms of either being extraordinarily literal, like pull off a piece of my cake, or rather figurative, pull off such a feat. It has the idea, I suppose, of like pulling the rabbit out of the hat. You pull, nobody expected that to happen. Then you got something like this, a bit off the wall. I'm going to pull off the road for a short break. In this case, it means to no longer be on the same road you're driving on, to take a turning. Yeah? Right, let's go on. How about cut off? Think about cut off for a second. Well, it can mean something like this. The arrogant presenter cut off his guests several times during the interview. Cut off in this case means something similar to interrupted. However, the thing is with many of these verbs is the reason why they exist is because they don't exactly mean the same thing as their equivalent, the one word equivalent. So cut off means not only interrupted but stopped the person from continuing what they were saying. So it kind of, that is what interrupting is, isn't it? It's kind of implied. Lots of words in English are implied. How about this one? the entire region was cut off by the floods. Well, here this is a lot more, how can I say, normal. It means that it was stranded, it was blocked. There was no way of getting there. Then you've got this one. To make your dress the right length, I need to cut off about 20 centimetres. This is extraordinarily literal. Cut off, yeah. So in all of these cases, off has the idea of it was on and that's off. So the guest was speaking and then suddenly no longer off the microphone. Yeah. Second one, it was connected to the rest of the land and then suddenly it was separated. And the same for the last one. It was part of the dress and then it was cut off, separated. Yeah. But in any case, they do have that same feeling that a couple of them are more literal than others. Turn off. Here's one. To get to a house, turn off at junction 14 and take the first exit the roundabout. That's a simple one. You turn off. Yeah. Driving along the motorway and you turn off. Nothing complicated about that. But then, what about this? Your horrible perfume is enough to turn off a sailor 100 miles out to sea. Don't sit in my car, please. Yeah, this one has another idea. So to turn somebody off is to disgust somebody, isn't it? It's to make somebody feel the opposite of attracted. And where does this idea come from? Well, you were doing whatever you were doing and then you were turned off. You're no longer focused. You're off in this way. It's a tricky one to think about, but that's how we look at it. So in all of these cases we see the idea that there was something happening, let's say, that connected the subject or object to the situation and then suddenly no longer. Please turn off the lights before you leave. So in English we turn something on or we turn something off, and this is the interesting thing. So when it comes to, when we look back in the old days, we used to actually turn a switch. Now of course we press a button or we flick it, but before we used to turn them on or off in that way, and so we still use the verb turn with it. Furthermore, the idea was on meant it was on the circuit, on the electricity circuit, and then when it was switched off or turned off, it was no longer connected to the circuit. So this is what off means in this case. All right. Now we need to look at the word order, because there are certain things which people assume are fairly complicated with phrasal verb word order, but we do have a kind of way of navigating through the fog. Let's see how we do this. So when do we put the preposition before the verb and when after? Let's take an example, turn on. So we move away from off and we go on to on. Okay. So, A, I think it's time for the news. I'll turn on the TV. I think it's time for the news, so I'll turn the TV on. I think it's time for the news, so I'll turn it on. The TV, that is. So why can't we say turn on it? Why can't we say I'll turn on the TV, I'll turn the TV on, I'll turn it on, but we can't say turn on it? Cheers. Well, think about it. When we say turn on it, it means the gymnast climbed onto the horizontal bars and turned on it as elegantly as always. A totally different thing. Shouldn't do that. On the camera. Yeah, so I don't think you can actually climb onto a television and turn on it, unless you are extraordinarily small. The company used to be very popular, but customers turned on it when the CEO refused a long overdue pay rise for the staff. Tesla. So in this case, to turn on someone or something has the idea of you liked it before and then suddenly you don't like it anymore because it's done something you don't appreciate. It's to turn, as in you are facing one way where you like and then suddenly you turn on someone. Yeah, so there are two different meanings of it. Let's explain. So, I don't feel like listening to music anymore. I'll turn on the TV. So, we can see these in a certain chronological order. The most important thing that you're going to do now is to turn on the TV before you were listening to, I don't know, Spotify or whatever. And now you're going to turn on the TV. So TV going at the end gives it a special status in many ways. I mean, we don't really focus upon it, but if we did, that's what it would signify. If you want to watch something, you need to turn the TV on. So by putting on at the end, in this case, we are signifying that this is the aim. You need to turn the TV on. On being last. We're using these prepositions more or less like adverbs. So they are the result of things. In this case, to turn the TV on. So when we have something like this, you wanted to watch TV, so turn it on then. You've already mentioned TV. So you don't have to repeat it. So therefore, you don't say turn on it, because it is not more important. On is more important here, what you to do to it. You've mentioned the TV already, so it's about the action, and the action is to turn it on. So on goes last because it's more important. There we go. So turn it on then. On is the main stress because it's the main objective. Turn is a minor stress because it's the action. So turn it on then. To turn it on then. Okay. And you don't need to stress it because you've already referred to the TV. So I already explained it there. Go. Okay. Let's carry on and go back to off. Some interesting points on this one. To take off. Many ways of using this. So he took off his shoes and went into the shallow water. Removed. To take off, literally, to remove. He took a week off and went to Malta. Well, in this case, it means he chose to spend time away from the office. He took a week off, as I explained already, is not working. So he took a week of holiday, literally. He took a week off and went to Malta. The plane took off from Toronto Airport on schedule. The take-off in this case we use to signify to leave the ground. Why we do that, who knows? But the fact is it takes itself off the ground, but we've abandoned the object or the pronoun or whatever, or even the demonstrative. It's all gone. We just say it took off. Right. Go off. This, I believe, might help people understand why we use phrasal verbs so much in English, and why I believe you should start to like them. Because you see, if I say something like this, at the campsite the lights went off every night at 11:30. So it just simply means stopped working from light to dark. The fire alarm went off at the first sign of smoke. In this case, it means started working. Huh? Yeah, we do have some complications like this, but the fact of the matter is, when we're using this second off, it has the signification of getting started or triggering it. And the first one is about the fact that it was on the circuit and no longer there. So in English, when we talk about he went off into the forest, it's talking about he started his journey. So the fire alarm went off, the first sign of smoke. In this case, it started its ringing in a similar way. But here's the more poignant part, the more significant part I want to explain. Just look at this. He said goodbye and went off. Boring, n'est-ce pas? Said goodbye and went off. I mean, yeah. Why not? However, why not tell how he went off? He said goodbye and drove off. He said goodbye and walked off. He said goodbye and ran off. He said goodbye and cycled off. He said goodbye and rode off. He said goodbye and sailed off. He said goodbye and rode off. He said goodbye and danced off. He said goodbye and flew off. There are so many ways we can explain in English. You see, if we take another language like French, you can't do this. You would have to say, ils sont allés en conduisant, or something like that. He went away while driving, literally, or while dancing, whatever. But you can't actually stick something like this on together in French, or in a lot of languages. In the Slavic languages you can, in some cases, not all, but you can more or less do that. But in the Latin languages it's more tricky. And this is why I think you should start to appreciate these phrasal verbs, because we do have, they fill in a gap where other things can't. So either they mean a hybrid of two different verbs combined, or they can help to make a situation more exact. Do not fear them. How to learn them? Just use your instinct. That's all I would say. Have a feel for them. Feel what they could mean. Look at the context around you. Look at where the sentence lies and why it's like that. And then try and work out what it could mean. If you need to find a way of understanding phrasal verbs better, I can recommend this book. It's called The Phrasal Verb Organizer, and it's by John Flower. I shouldn't really advertise like that, but I will. It's a brilliant phrasal verb organizer book, and it goes into very, very good detail about things, and it gives you it has in the back a lexicography or a mini dictionary of phrasal verbs, but it doesn't kind of just give you a synonym. It explains it, you know. And it'll help you to get to grips and understand it. Failing that, I might write one myself. In any case, off has in this case a signification of away. So that's why in English we tell someone to off. We tell them to go away and do something unspeakable to themselves, is what it means. So think about how to best use your phrasal verbs and how to synonymize your language, because sometimes it helps to not hang around the same verbs all the time. Yeah? On that note, I really hope that you'll consider having a little look at other phrasal verbs and getting used to them. And I thank you for watching. Our email address is info@lowlinguists.com. Please like, comment or share on one of our social media platforms, and I wish you a very wonderful whatever you're going to do after this video. Bye.